Hi, I'm Jackie Clary, and I am excited to present to you Zappin' It To Ya, Debbie Gibson and the connection between the once teen queen and her fans. It's not unusual for a group of fans to have a collective name. There are Fanalos, Beliebers, Swifties, the Armies, both Kiss and BTS, and the most famous of them all, Deadheads. But I am going to introduce you to the DebHeads. These fans love Debbie Gibson. They are almost all in their 40s and early 50s. If you were in school in the late 1980s, you heard Debbie Gibson's music on the radio, on the boombox at home, at the mall. If you liked it at all, you may have been at the time, and may even be still, a little bit of a DebHead. Some DebHeads left their tapes in Electric Youth Perfume in mom and dad's attic and never thought about them again. That is until something in the last 10 years or so made them think of them. Lost in Your Eyes comes on 80s on 8, or Debbie Gibson is dancing across the TV screen on Dancing with the Stars. It's hard to hear that song or see her dance without thinking of how they made you feel when you were young, if you were young at the right time. If you are young now, then it's probably, "Hey mom, who's she?" Or if you were older then, it's probably, "Debbie Gibson, she's still around?" Those shows that made you think of her again, they bank on that nostalgia pull. But it's not all nostalgia for all fans. A group of very dedicated DebHeads kept the tapes and perfumes close as prized possessions all these years and maintained a connection to Debbie, and in some sense grew up right alongside her. She never went away. She's continued to release music and perform around the world. She found great success in musical theater a full decade before several American Idol contestants would follow a similar path. The general album-buying public may have stopped paying attention, but the core DebHeads saw themselves in her more mature lyrics. The dedicated DebHeads themselves share a close bond. They instantly recognize each other, not just for their love of Debbie Gibson, but for a shared exuberance, acceptance, and love of music. They are connected to each other in Facebook groups, on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Zoom, all the usual places. And when it is safe to travel, they go to shows together, stay at each other's houses, and hang out before and after the shows. I have talked and messaged with DebHeads all over the world, and if I had an hour, I'd tell you about dozens of them. They were so fun to talk to. And hopefully someday I can tell more of their stories, but in the time that I have, I'd like you to meet some of the DebHeads. There's Jill Broderick. She's from Jacksonville, Florida. At 11 years old, she discovered the album Electric Youth, Debbie Gibson's second album. It was released in January 1989 and went #1 in March. She told me, "It had a level of positivity that was different than the other artists of the era. I didn't see Guns N' Roses as inspirational in that kind of way." But the inspiration she took from it wasn't just for herself, but for youth to come. "I always wanted to be a mental health counselor. It was really the song Electric Youth that brought that message home for me." She has achieved the career she envisioned when she first heard the lyrics, "Don't underestimate the power of a lifetime ahead." She works in the public school system to get mental health services to families without health insurance. She knows she is spreading that positivity along to the youth of tomorrow, inspired by Debbie's message. For Ali Zimmerman, Electric Youth was the right song and the right message at the right time. In February 1989, when she was 12, Ali was in the hospital in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, fighting a long-term illness. She got a day pass to leave the hospital and go to the mall. She got the Electric Youth cassette tape and listened to nothing else, pushing aside even Whitney Houston, who was her favorite artist at the time. "The future only belongs in the hands of itself," was a lyric that resonated. She got healthy, and she got out of the hospital. She's been a DebHead ever since. Ali joined a Deb email list in 1992 as Debbie was performing in Broadway in Les Miserables. That's when Ali started building connections with other fans. She tells me, "It has something to do with the type of person she attracts as a fan. She's got that positivity going on. We all kind of bond with each other because we have that too." The email list Ali talked about has since migrated to Facebook and is maintained by DebHead Chris Bullins. It's the fan group with the most followers. Chris is from North Carolina and became a fan in 1988, connecting right away with the lyrics. He said, "A lot of her songs have always been relatable to me, from Fun Times and We Could Be Together, to Love Gained, Out of the Blue, and Love Lost, Lost in Your Eyes. He says, even though at the time I hadn't experienced love, it let me know that it was out there, even for me, a naive little gay boy finding his way out of a small town. Keith Creighton grew up in Cleveland. I thought she was really cute, Keith said. But since it was not in keeping with the goth crowd, his crew at the time, it felt that Debbie was almost like contraband. His friends bought him Debbie's debut album, Out of the Blue, as a joke for his birthday. I was really embarrassed, but secretly excited. I took the cellophane off Out of the Blue, and within minutes, I was in the best mood ever. It kind of really was life-saving music, he said. Corey Hawkins in Cleveland was a big fan as he started 6th grade in 1989. He considered Debbie his first imaginary girlfriend. On the first day of school, he wore his Electric Youth t-shirt and Nike sneakers with the fluorescent accents. He expected to be one of the cool kids, but it didn't happen that way, discovering that not all 6th graders loved Debbie as much as he did. It started off a rough couple years for me, he said, but lots of fans eventually got to the same place as Corey did. Why be guilty about anything that brings me joy? Amen to that. For Connecticut DebHead Noel Fogelman, he felt that listening to her past 1990 was a guilty pleasure. I hate that term, by the way. Just really don't like the term guilty pleasure. But he only felt like that until he connected with other DebHeads. By finding other people who liked her too, he could shake off that guilty pleasure label. Thank goodness. Jenny Wood Corvo in Orange County, California, says the best part about being a DebHead isn't actually Debbie herself. It's the community, she says. I have made so many friends through my love of Deb. We share our lives and not just Deb-related things. While DebHeads are fans of other artists, the connection between DebHeads is unique. Allie Zimmerman is a huge Styx fan, and after 20 years as a Styx fan, she's only Facebook friends with 2 other Styx fans, while she's Facebook friends with 65 Debbie Gibson fans. Simon Streak is responsible for the Daily Deb, a new picture of Debbie posted every day in the Proud DebHeads Facebook group. He's pretty sure he hasn't missed a day since April 2018. When he first met Debbie, he was embraced as the Daily Deb guy. I was staggered that by just being a fan, I was recognized for it. Both fans and Debbie herself know who he is. When Cliff Dickinson first met her in 2019, he was greeted by Debbie exclaiming, "OMG, it's Cliffy from Australia!" A fan since he was 10, he's connected with her through social media and considers her a friend, strangely enough, he says. It's not really strange at all, as that feeling of a friend connection runs through several DebHead stories. Cliff runs a Zoom meetup for DebHeads in this time of quarantine. We even had Deb herself join us, which was a fantastic moment to come out of this whole pandemic, he said. A personal connection is powerful. A shout out, a mention, a follow, a response to a PM. So when an artist is so connected to her fans, where is the line between fan and friend? Several DebHeads call her a friend, but there's more nuance to it than that. Allie explained it well. There's a line, and fans and friends can't be the same thing. She's not paying to hang out with us, whereas we're paying to hang out with her. There have been times when she's been extra gracious. Who gets your phone number? That's a friend. There's a level between fan and friend where I would fall, Allie says. I do feel like I could message her on Instagram and tell her anything, and I'd probably get a response. Access is available, but access costs money. A personalized video on Cameo goes for $195. The meet and greet packages for the 2019 mixtape tour were a couple of $100. It is certainly true that it doesn't cost anything to ask her for a retweet or a follow on social media or to send her items to sign through her P.O. box. Those are all things that she does. But those things take time and don't involve actual FaceTime. There are more ways than ever to reach a favorite celebrity. In the late 1980s, Debbie, as most performers did, relied on fan magazines and TV shows to reach her fans. She even brought a keyboard along with her for her 1987 appearance on Hollywood Squares. That's one good way to prove that you play your own instruments, right? Most DebHeads are quick to point out Debbie's musical achievements as one of the reasons they're fans. Her skill and attention to her craft make a difference. Here's the one that most fans are very quick to tell you about and is a point of pride for both artist and fan. In June 1988, during the same week that Debbie Gibson graduated from Calhoun High School in Merrick, New York, her song Foolish Beat hit #1, making her the youngest artist to write, produce, and perform a #1 single in the United States. She was 17. That record still stands. In the 2010s, fans started to come out on Twitter. In 2013, she tweeted, "I could never shake my love for anyone but you." It's not unusual for a music star to thank their fans. On several tours, Bono would do it every night during With or Without You. But I didn't see Bono post a montage of 30 years of fan photos on the anniversary of the Joshua Tree. Debbie did that for Out of the Blue. The albums came out the same year. Debbie uses Twitter to find her fans and celebrate them as much as they use it to find her and celebrate her. You may notice several of the DebHeads call her Deb. While the name Debbie Gibson was all over the record albums, friends and family have always called her Deborah, or Deb for short. In the mid-90s and 2000s, she went by Deborah professionally. While it may appear as a move to make her seem more mature to the public, similar to Ricky Schroeder becoming Rick Schroeder, Deborah was always the name she preferred. In these last years, she's gone back to Debbie professionally. So with all this, I asked Deb head Paul Dompier that if I met her or talked to her, what should I call her? I don't want to offend her, and I don't want to presume a level of familiarity that I don't have. So what's appropriate? Debbie was the answer, and I agree. To call her Deb, you gotta earn it. Paul grew up in a small town in northern Michigan. When he first heard Foolish Beat, he thought, what a wonderful ballad written by a teenager, and became at that point, as he says, a dedicated Debhead for life. His senior picture featured the Electric Youth album. Paul says she was the first celebrity I ever met. Every time she's always been very friendly, never been snotty, given me a lot of love and respect. Paul guesses they've met between 30 and 40 times. Throughout the 2010s, Debbie appeared in a lot of 80s-based shows and ended the decade with the ultimate 80s-based tour. The mixtape tour was a full circle moment. For the dedicated Debheads, they got several chances to see her live and meet up with their friends. But for the fans who were Debheads back in the day and had been steadily finding her over the decade in lots of different places, they could come and live their best 1980s life all over again and bring their kids. Debbie shared the stage with other chart toppers of her time. Tiffany, Naughty by Nature, Salt and Peppa, New Kids on the Block. So her set had to be short and to the point. She did what the kids at the reunion wanted to hear. Shake Your Love, Lost in Your Eyes, Electric Youth, complete with original choreography. Jazz hands. Actually, it was jazz hands, like that. All of these artists knew and respected where they came from. One of the encores was a new song called 80s Baby. Donnie Wahlberg calls out, "Who loves the 80s?" Yeah, they all do, Donnie, and I know who knows his audience. Real quick, shot check, still good? Okay, good. Debbie turns 50 on August 31st this year. Most Debheads have either just hit this milestone themselves or will soon. But Debbie hitting this milestone is important to them too. Allie Zimmerman, a professional in the nonprofit fundraising world, is organizing an online donation campaign for Music Cares in honor of Debbie's 50th. Paul Dompier has been counting down his 50 favorite Debbie Gibson tracks on Twitter and Facebook. There's one more fan that I want to tell you about, Jackie from San Diego. Sometimes the easiest way to explain why I love Debbie Gibson is because I was a 14-year-old girl in 1989. And while I can talk about this professionally, it's also personal. It was the day after my 14th birthday when she jumped up on the piano while singing Lost in Your Eyes during the 1989 American Music Awards. I wore out my VHS tape of that performance, which was followed by the 60-second version of George Michael's Diet Coke ad that intercut footage of George preparing to go on stage at Madison Square Garden, comparing it to a matador preparing to fight in a bull ring. Both Debbie Gibson and I are huge George Michael fans. That 6 minutes of videotape, I still have a hard time putting into words how important it was to me at that time in my life. I saw myself in her. I believed in what she was saying. And now, as an adult, with adult worries and adult challenges, I love remembering what that felt like. I love hearing her music and just feeling it again. And that feeling, it's electric. So thanks very much. I'm so glad to be part of PopCon this year. I look forward to chatting with you on Zoom, Twitter, and wherever else we meet. And I do want to do a quick shout out. Thank you to my board op over here, my son, and my camera op, my daughter, Sammy and Elliot. Thanks so much, guys.